Clawland here, and today we're going to take a look at a new game called Glory to the Galaxy? Race for Rome? Oh no, it's Eminent Domain. Eminent Domain was released in 2011 by Tasty Minstrel Games and designed by Seth Joffrey. It was actually a Kickstarter game and one of the first really successful ones, and there were a couple others as well. But this is primarily a card-based game in a civilization space type theme. I kind of made fun of it a little earlier because what it basically does is combines the mechanisms from both Glory to Rome and Race for the Galaxy and adds some nice polish to it. So let's take a look at the game and then I'll tell you what I think about it. So you can see here Eminent Domain comes in a fairly standard sized box with the cool little TMG logo on the front. And we have the full color rule book here. It comes with plenty of pictures, some large text, diagrams, examples, all the stuff you would need to easily learn the game. One thing about this rule book though is it's written in a way that makes it easy to learn the game, but it's a real pain in the butt to go back and research specific little rules here and there. And that's not really a detractor. It's just there's two different ways to write a rule book. You can write them like GMT, where they read like an encyclopedia, or you can write them in such a way like they've done here, and other games such as Through the Ages, where you kind of learn as you read through it. So I don't know, just an observation, I guess. You have basically a main player board here. This is where you're going to be placing all these stacks of cards. Then we have all the cards here. I've separated into a couple different packages. Here we have the planet cards. Then we have all of the specialty cards. And some more of the cards here. I just had to separate them between a few bags. Then on this side here we have the plastic spaceships. These are the same ones that you can find in the game Eclipse and among some others. We have victory point chips, resource tokens, and the planets. And finally some extra victory point chips. These are used kind of like Race for the Galaxy. When you run out of chips, everyone still gets to finish their turn, and if there's any additional chips or points that need to be awarded, you use these special blue ones. So let's set up a game. I'll show you how to play it. It's really simple, and then we'll wrap it up. So the first thing you're going to do in the game is deal all the players out one of these turn order markers. And the reason you do that is once everyone has one, they're all going to flip them over, and one of them is going to have this one that has the start player marker. So that's a nifty little way to determine start player. And this is just going to tell you the phases of the turn. So after a couple turns, you're probably not even going to need this because it's pretty straightforward. And everyone's going to start with a deck of 10 cards. It's going to be 2 of each of these except for Warfare. You only get 1 Warfare, and for that 10th card, each person is going to get a special politics card. Now, then everyone is going to take a start planet. The start planets are the ones that are also on this thick cardboard, so everyone just randomly takes one of those, and they're going to keep it face down in front of them like so. Now, the thing that you need to know about planets is there's 2 values on the back of them. One shows 2 and then a fighter symbol, or it's going to show a number and then a fighter symbol, and then the other side is a number and a colonized symbol. And that means in order to settle this planet, you can either use 2 fighters using the warfare action, or you can use 2 colonies during the colonize action in order to settle this planet. And when you settle it, you flip it over and you gain the benefits of that planet. You can also see down here at the bottom, it says that this is a fertile style planet. There's 3 major types of planets. There's the metallic, the fertile, and the advanced. And then there are also prestige planets, and there is a wild type planet called a utopian. So on your turn, you're going to take your deck and shuffle it vis-a-vis Dominion, and you're going to draw a hand of 5 cards. Then the first thing that you can do on your turn, optionally, is to play an action. So that means each one of these cards has 2 sections on them. One says action and one says roll. So if you choose to play an action, you're going to play one of these cards from your hands and take the associated action and ignoring the roll. So let's look at the actions of each of the cards. On Survey, the action says draw 2 cards. So if you were to play this, you would then immediately draw 2 cards from your deck and bring it into your hand. On the Warfare side, the action is to attack 1 planet or collect 1 fighter. So if you were to use this as your action, you could collect 1 fighter from the fighter pool. Now, it also said on that Warfare card that you can use that action to attack a planet instead. And that means to expend fighters equal to the fighter value on the planet in order to colonize that planet. So if I previously had 2 fighters and I expended a Warfare card from my hand during the action phase to attack a planet, I would play it into my discard pile, of course. I would expend these 2 fighters, flip over the planet. I now have this planet. And you can see on this particular planet, it has a victory point value of 2. So at the end of the game, that earns me 2 points. It is a fertile type planet, which I will tell you a little bit why that matters when we get to research. And we can see that this produces a good. The colonize action is very similar to Warfare, only you can settle a planet or get +1 colony. To colonize a planet or +1 colony, you're going to take the colony card and slip it underneath an uncolonized or an unsettled planet. So now this has 1 of the 2 that it needs. Now if later in the game this had 2 under it, and I played a colonize card from my hand for the associated action and use the action to colonize the planet, I take these, they go into my discard, and this planet is now colonized and I flip it over just in the same way that Warfare works, only you're using these colonized cards. Next we have the produce trade card. So this you can use to either produce or to trade, so it's like a dual purpose card. If you take the action to produce, you'd simply produce a resource and place it on a goods producing world. In this case, this produces a green good. So you place it on there, and each planet can hold 1 good. If you chose to use the trade action, you simply take 1 good off of a planet that contains a good, and you collect 1 victory point. Simple as that. And finally, we have research. The research action is to remove up to 2 cards in your hand from the game. So this is a way of deck thinning, because a lot of times some people may go for specific strategies and they don't want other cards clogging up their deck, so you can throw research cards to get rid of those unneeded cards. Very similar to a Dominion type mechanic. So after you choose whether or not to play an action, the next step in the turn is to select a role. And those of you who have played Glory to Rome, this is going to be very, very familiar. Basically, you select one of these roles to lead. And when you lead a role, you grab a card from that stack and say, I'm going to lead survey, in this case. Then you can boost this survey role with additional survey cards that you had in your hand. So say I chose to lead survey, so I grab it from there. I look at my hand and say, ooh, I have 2 survey cards in my hand, so I'm going to boost this survey with 2 additional cards. So I'm now doing a 3-card survey. Then other players have the option to either follow, meaning they can then play survey cards from their hands and partake in the survey role, or they can dissent, which means they are essentially foregoing that opportunity, and instead the reward for dissenting is they get to draw an additional card from their deck into their hand. Well, you can see here, this says that the role is to look at the survey symbol -1 planet cards, keep 1. And the leader may look at 1 additional card. So that means for every survey card that you play out of your hand, you can look at that number n -1 planet cards and keep 1 of them. Now the benefit for leading this role is you get to look at 1 additional card, meaning you get to look at a number of planet cards equal to the number of survey cards that you play. So again, to further this example, let's say I lead survey and I play 2 survey cards from my hand. I now get to look at 3, the top 3 cards of the planet deck, and keep 1 of them, and the remaining ones get discarded. Then it goes around the table, and say the second player wanted to follow that role, they would play a number of survey cards from their hand and look at n-1 planets. So obviously, since it's n-1, if they follow with only one survey card, it does them no good. So they'd have to throw at least 2, and that means they get to grab that top planet card and keep it. Or if they've had 3, then they could play 3 of them out of their hand and look at 2 cards and keep 1. Now again, these planet cards are all going to be different. They're going to have different victory point values. Some may produce various goods. And you can see this particular planet, called Voson, actually has an additional survey symbol on it. So that means eventually, when you collect these planets, you're going to place them face down. And eventually, when you settle the planet via colonize or warfare, and you flip it over, you're now going to have an additional survey symbol. So later in the game, if you were to take the survey action or to follow a survey action from another player, you always have a minimum of 1 survey symbol. So if I played 2 more cards, I'd have a total of 3. So there's a big benefit for colonizing planets that have additional symbols on them. Here's a different planet, and this particular one gives you a +1 card to your hand size. Hand size starts at 5, but for each one of these +1 planets you have, you increase your hand size by 1. So that's really good as well. So let's look at the warfare roll. If you lead the warfare roll, you get to collect 1 fighter per warfare symbol, and the leader may attack a planet instead. So again, if I lead warfare, then I play a number of warfare cards from my hand. Say I only had 1 more, I then collect 2 fighters. And that's that. Or the leader bonus is you can use this to attack a planet. Now, if other players follow the warfare, they can only use it to collect more fighters. They don't have my leader benefit of being able to attack a planet. The colonize action is very similar. You get +1 colony for each colonized symbol. So this is how you add multiple colonies at the same time. So I could lead this roll and say I had a few more colonies in my hand, use them and slide them all under a particular colony. Like for example, if I had this one, it requires 4 colonies. Say I had 3 or 4 in my hand, I could use it to slip them all under this colony. The produce trade, again, very similar. You produce 1 resource per production symbol, or if you use it as a trade, you get to trade 1 resource per trade symbol and get 1 victory point each. So really the difference many times between the action and the roll is the action will many times only allow you to do 1. So trade once, produce once, add 1 colony, add 1 fighter. But nobody else in the game gets to partake in that. That action is for you alone. Whereas when you take the roll, you can potentially do it multiple times if you have multiple cards, but everybody else has the opportunity to partake as well, although they don't get that leader benefit. And finally, we have research. This is the only one that's really different. And that's when you are able to acquire 1 technology card after satisfying the research symbol costs and planet requirements. So let's look at that. That's these guys I have separated up here. Each one of these research cards is more or less a more advanced version of the basic cards. And they're each going to have several components that are important. One is a planet type on the bottom right. This happens to be that red metallic planet. It's going to have a research cost here, which is 3. And it's going to have some symbols on it and some action text. So when you play a research, the minimum number of research that you need is 3. So you need to have a minimum of playing 3 research cards, meaning lead with 1 and play 2 from your hand, or lead with 1 and maybe have some planets that have a couple, but you have to have a minimum of 3. And in order to draw from this pile, draw one of the advanced cards from this pile, you must have at least 1 colonized metallic planet. And this stack is all the fertile ones, and then finally this stack is for all the advanced ones. I just have them separated out to make it easier. And you can see as the cards get better, the costs are going to increase. So this particular one requires 5 research and 2 metallic planets. And finally, there's 1 for each planet type that requires 3 and costs 7 research, but they're usually a pretty strong card and worth a fair amount of victory points. You can see this one, Improved Trade. If you play it as an action, it says you can collect 1 influence from supply. Influence is the victory points. So that's good. You play that card, you collect a victory point. Or you can use it as a one of these symbols to boost other cards, and this you can use as a warfare symbol or a trade symbol. Now there are a couple of these that are double-sided. See if I can find one here. Here we go. This is a permanent one, and permanent ones are double-sided. So when you take it, you immediately pick which side you want to use. You place it in front of you, and that's where it's going to remain for the rest of the game, where you gain its benefit. Whereas the other ones, when you draw them, they go into your hand, and then they're going to be put in your discard pile and all that good stuff, just like any other normal card. And you can see this one, Imperialism, is going to grant you 2 victory points at the end of the game. It gives you 1 each of these symbols, just like how the symbols that are on some of the planets are. And on the other side, you can see that it gives you 2 points, and it's got some pretty nasty text here that says -2 to your warfare costs. When you attack a planet, leave a fighter on it. That planet cannot store resources. So, pretty interesting choices that you have. So those are all the roles. Then the last thing that you're going to do on your turn, after you've selected a role and all the other players have chosen to follow that role or to dissent, is you're going to perform cleanup on your hand. And all you do for cleanup is you can discard as many cards as you want from your hand and then draw back up to 5 cards. Or if you have any of the planets that give you additional cards, then you'll draw up to whatever that hand limit is. The only other card that I didn't touch on right now is the politics card. And the politics card is a one-time use special card that you can only use as an action. And the action text states, remove this card from the game, take any one role card from the stacks into your hand. So just a way to grab a card that you desperately need. So that's really all there is to the game. As you can see, if you've played Glory to Rome and or Race for the Galaxy, it's very, very similar, but it kind of simplifies on both of those, which is nice. It's very easy, quick game to get into. Now the game is going to end when all of 1 or 2 stacks is depleted. And that depends on the number of players. And even if a stack is depleted during the game, you can still perform the action. It just might be a slightly modified action and roll, and you can read that here. But once 2 stacks are depleted in a 4-player game, the game immediately ends, and everybody tallies up their victory points. So let's do a quick rundown of a turn. You're going to have 5 cards in your hand, or potentially more, depending on if you have any benefits from planets. Then the first thing you're going to do is maybe decide to play a card as an action. That is optional. Then after you do that, you're going to select a role, complete that role. Everyone else is going to either follow or dissent. And then you do the cleanup phase, where you choose to discard any number of cards, including 0 cards, from your hand into your discard pile and draw back up to your hand size, ready for the next turn. So I think Eminent Domain is a great little game. I love Glory to Rome, I love Race for the Galaxy, so it only made sense that when these 2 mechanisms were combined, I'd really enjoy Eminent Domain, and I did. It also helps that it is in a sci-fi theme, which of course makes it that much better. Another thing that I like about Eminent Domain is it's very easy to learn and easy to teach to others, and they pick it up really quickly. One thing is, if you haven't played Glory to Rome, that whole following mechanism is a little foreign, so it may take a couple turns for people to pick that up, especially because people aren't used to not having to think as much or not be kept on their toes when it's not their turn. And that leads me to another great thing about this game, is there's relatively no downtime, because even if it's not your turn, you still have to decide whether to dissent or follow what the other players do every single time. Another thing I like is this game scales really, really well between 2 and 4 players. Although I think a 4-player game is probably a little bit more competitive and a little more fun, it does play well with 2 and 3 players. Another thing I like about this game is that it is easy to set up. Unlike Dominion, which takes forever, or some of those other card games that take a while to set up, this is not the case. It's very quick, you pull it out of the box and you go. There's really not a lot negative that I can say about this game. It's a lot of fun. It is on the lighter side, and it almost borders a filler status because it is so quick and light. But it's definitely a fun game to play, whether you are a hardcore gamer or more of a casual style gamer. I look forward to hopefully some expansions coming out in the future. Maybe something to utilize the warfare a little bit more, maybe something that has a little bit more player conflict, it's like Glory to Rome has. But overall, I think it's a really fun game, and for the price, it is definitely something you should look into picking up. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed playing Eminent Domain.